Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles. I'm Jess, and today we are back with Trent.
Hello.
Today we have not murder,
For a change.
not murder for a change. We're going to be talking about the D.B. Cooper case.
One of my favorites ever. I love this case. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, so this one's going to be a pretty fun one to do. And I can actually say that because no one's murdered.
Yeah. And for like kind of a heinous crime type thing, it actually is like kind of a fun one, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a nice change.
Yeah. But before we get into it, make sure that you're following us on all of our social media platforms. I do have those linked down below for you. Make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe. All right. Are you ready to get into
ready.
D.B.
Let's
Cooper?
do it.
All right. So, on the day before Thanksgiving, a man identifying himself as Dan Cooper approached the Northwest Orient airline counter at Portland International Airport. He purchased a one-way ticket to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport for $20.
Must be nice. Yeah.
$20.
That's crazy. And the fact that you can just walk up to like a gate and just buy a ticket for a plane ride. Now people have to buy them like months in advance, and like it's definitely not $20 either.
It's definitely. I just bought my first ever plane tickets, and no, they're not.
It was
cheap.
not $20.
It was not $20.
Yeah.
Nope. Just even for seat selection alone, not even the seat.
Yep.
Seat selection is $100.
Yep. Yeah, half the airlines you can't even bring a bag on the plane for $20. Like it's more than that just for a bag.
Yeah.
And he got a whole flight out of it.
He did. This is a whole different
He's already
world.
winning. We haven't even started the case and he's already winning right now.
Oh gosh, it's just such a different world.
Yeah, definitely.
So he was described as a white male in his mid-40s, approximately 5'10" to 6 feet tall, weighing approximately 170 to 180 with pounds, with olive-toned skin, brown eyes, and short, combed-back black hair. He wore a dark business suit, white shirt, a thin black tie, black raincoat, and brown shoes. He carried a black attaché case and a brown paper bag. Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a Boeing 727. That means nothing to me, so hopefully that means something to you. And it was bound for a 30-minute flight to Seattle. He took a seat in 18E in the rear of the plane, and the flight carried 36 passengers and a crew of 6, including Captain William A. Scott, First Officer William Radikazik, Second Officer Harold E. Anderson, and flight attendants Florence Schaffner, Tina Mucklow, and Alice Hancock. After settling in, Cooper ordered a bourbon and a 7-Up, which is a weird combo.
Yeah, I think maybe back then that was a little more like a 7 and 7 type deal.
Sure. Sure. Shortly after takeoff, around 2:50 p.m., he handed a note to the flight attendant, Florence, who initially assumed that it was a flirtatious gesture, my goodness, and pocketed it unread. Cooper leaned closer and said, quote, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb," end quote. The note, later described as typewritten or hand-printed, stated he had a bomb in his briefcase and demanded $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills, 4 parachutes, 2 main and 2 reserve, and a fuel truck on standby in Seattle. Cooper opened his attaché case to reveal what appeared to be a bomb, red sticks, wires, and a battery. Which my question is, we have no idea if this was actually a bomb or not, right?
No, definitely not. Yeah. I mean, all we know is that security was not the same level of security in airports as it is today.
Not even close.
The fact that you could get that, whether it's real or not, just like walk that onto a plane, you know, and I mean, obviously, even if it was fake, it was meant to look like a real bomb. So that's another big difference we've had in the last 50 years of air travel.
Yeah, quite different. So he instructed the flight attendant to relay his demands to the cockpit. The crew complied, notifying air traffic control and airline officials. Cooper remained calm, polite, and composed, maintaining control without being aggressive. To avoid alarming passengers, the crew announced that the plane would circle Seattle due to a minor mechanical issue. Cooper allowed the flight attendant to sit beside him, where he reviewed a passenger list, possibly to ensure that no law enforcement agents were aboard. He appeared familiar with the region, noting Tacoma from the air and mentioning the proximity of McCord Air Force Base to SeaTac, which is the airport, suggesting possible military or just local knowledge. After landing, Cooper released the 36 passengers in exchange for the ransom and parachutes, delivered by FBI agents and airline personnel. The money totaling $200,000, and I looked it up because I was curious, how much would that be today? Do you have a guess?
I'd say 800,000.
1.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So quite a bit of money.
He also could buy a lot of plane tickets with that too.
Back then, he could buy as many plane tickets as he wanted.
That's a lot. He could fly for life with that.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, because by today's standards, 200,000, you're like, if you're going to risk all this for that, that seems like not much money to do that for.
No, it's not.
But if you're talking 1.5 million, someone would be willing to maybe do that.
I could see someone being willing to do that.
Yeah, because that is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So that 200,000 consisted of 10,000 $20 bills with recorded serial numbers. The parachutes included 2 primary civilian chutes and 2 military reserve chutes, one of which was a non-functioning training chute sewn shut, which is interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if that was on purpose or if they just grabbed whatever they could, because they didn't have a lot of time to do all this.
No.
I mean, that's an interesting thing. It's not like they had hours and hours to figure this out. The fact that FBI agents had all this put together, like waiting at the runway, because they didn't want to alert anybody that something was going on. Like the passengers didn't even know until after the fact, when people started like trying to interview them and stuff. And they're like, what do you mean?
How crazy would that be? You're like, I was just on that flight.
Yeah, you could have been sitting right across from him, and there were even people that commented like thoughts they had about him, like on the flight and everything, and then reporters all of a sudden, like a few hours later, are like knocking down your door, like this is the biggest thing ever, and so, which, I mean, it's good, obviously, that none of them were harmed and none of them knew. And I mean, they weren't terrified or anything. So none of the passengers were like traumatized by this at all. A lot of them, I've seen documentaries and things where they interview them and a lot of them are laughing or joking about it. Good. Or, so at least they don't have horrible feelings about it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
So he ordered the plane to fly to Mexico City with a stop in Reno, Nevada for refueling. He specified a low altitude of 10,000 feet, flaps at 15 degrees, landing gear down, and the aft stairs unlocked. Conditions optimal for parachute jump. Only 4 crew members remained, the 3 pilots and flight attendant Tina Mucklow. Around 7:40 p.m., the plane took off heading south. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Cooper jumped with the ransom money tied to his waist using parachute cord, taking one main parachute and the non-functional reserve chute.
But he did have one working parachute.
He did have one working, yep. The exact jump location was estimated to be near something that I definitely cannot pronounce. Washougal, Washougal River, which was a heavily forested area. The plane landed safely in Reno, but Cooper was gone. The crew found his clip-on tie clip, and 2 parachutes left behind. The FBI launched an immediate search dubbed NORJAC, which was Northwest Hijacking, focusing on the suspected drop zone in Washington's rugged terrain. No trace of Cooper, his parachute, or most of the ransom money was found. The FBI interviewed flight attendants who provided nearly identical descriptions of Cooper, leading to composite sketch B passenger B. Mitchell, seated across from Cooper, corroborated their accounts, though he estimated Cooper's height slightly shorter at 5'9" to 5'10", which I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be like, or I'm not going to be able to be like, oh no, he's not between like 5'10" and 6 feet.
Yeah.
He's 5'9" or 5'10". Like,
Yeah.
how do you know?
Especially if you're not like standing right
You're
next to him
sitting.
comparing or anything. I mean, most
Yeah.
people can only tell like if someone's really tall or really short or like normal,
Yeah.
unless you're standing right next to somebody, it's hard
Yeah.
to pin down to the inch.
Yeah.
So it's not like anyone said he was 6'8" or 5'1" or anything like that. Like everybody
Exactly.
was basically saying he was normal, average height.
Average height.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the FBI released the serial numbers of the ransom bills on December 8th, 71, hoping to trace the money, but none surfaced initially. The FBI developed a suspect profile suggesting Cooper was a military trained parachutist, possibly an Air Force veteran, due to his familiarity with military parachutes and local geography. However, his choice of a non-steerable parachute, lack of proper gear, and the dangerous jump conditions led to some speculating that he was not experienced in skydiving. In April of 72, Richard Floyd McCoy hijacked a Boeing 727 in a similar manner, leading to suspicion that he was Cooper. McCoy was ruled out due to physical discrepancies and having an alibi. In May of 1973, the FBI released an internal 8-page suspect profile noting Cooper's athletic build, suggesting regular exercise, and reinforcing the military background theory. The profile speculated that he lacked an accomplice, as no precise flight path was dictated, and the jump time appeared improvised. A hunter found a placard from the aft stairs of the Boeing 727 in Washington confirming the suspected drop zone. The plane itself was sold to a different airline. 8-year-old Brian Ingram discovered $5,800 in decomposing $20 bills along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. The bills matched the ransom serial number, reigniting the public's interest. The money was split between Ingram and Northwest Orient's insurers, with $280 retained as evidence. No additional bills were found, deepening the mystery of what happened to D.B. Cooper.
And that's only obviously a very small percentage of the money too. If it was only 5,000 some dollars, so that certainly wasn't the whole thing or even a big
Right.
chunk of it. So where was the
Yeah.
rest of the money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who's to say? I mean, that could have even just poof off his belt, which I guess we'll talk about in the theories spot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool for that kid though that he
Cool for the
found it,
kid.
and
Yeah.
it kind of stinks that the airline insurance took half of it. It would have been
I
cool. They should
know.
let the kid take the rest of
Let the kid
it.
have it. Come on,
I
guys.
saw an interview with the kid shortly
Oh,
after,
really?
and he was like a cute little kid. He was so excited,
Yeah.
But his big thing was like he was gonna be more excited when he got the money finally.
I just want the
Yeah,
money.
exactly. So he thought it was cool, but he definitely wanted what he found.
Well, for sure.
Which
Yeah.
yeah, so he should have gotten the
Especially
whole
when you're a
thing.
little kid. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. The FBI recovered 66 latent fingerprints, Cooper's clip-on tie clip, 8 cigarette butts, and 2 parachutes from the plane. The tie yielded a partial DNA sample in the 2000s, which was used to rule out suspects like McCoy and another one that we're going to talk about later. In 2017, amateur sleuth Eric Eulis noted rare titanium and stainless steel particles on Cooper's tie, tracing them to crucible steel in Pennsylvania, suggesting that Cooper worked in aerospace. And he sued the FBI for access to the tie for further DNA testing, but the FBI has not released it, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI vetted suspects based on physical descriptions, parachuting experience, regional knowledge, and forensic matches. By 1976, all but 24 of the 800 plus suspects were eliminated. Insane.
Yeah.
How many times are you going to have over 800 suspects
That's a
in a
lot of
case?
suspects for a case.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they primarily eliminated them through statements and lack of DNA or fingerprint matches. Tips from the public often led to interviews with individuals resembling the sketch, posing parachuting skills, or showing sudden wealth. Most were dismissed due to insufficient evidence. In 1973, an FBI suspect profile described Cooper as an Air Force veteran, likely in his 40s, with meticulous planning skills and no accomplice, based on his independent actions and evidence retrieval. There was also numerous false confessions and letters that overwhelmed the investigators, which is just crazy to me that people are just gonna randomly be like, "Oh yeah, that's me. That's me." Like,
Although I think in
okay,
this case, because he almost took on like a Robin Hood type
I
persona for
guess,
a lot of
yeah.
people. And so, because I mean, yes, it still was a terroristic thing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and hijacking, but nobody got hurt in it or anything like that. And so I think a lot of people kind of saw him as like a modern day Robin Hood. And so, like, of course, there are going to be people who are, you know, drinking at the bar with their friends and everything and, you know, want to say that they're DB Cooper. Whereas, you know, a lot of the other crimes that, you know, in general and crimes that we cover and stuff, like nobody
Yeah.
wants to like say they did these horrendous things. But this one I could see why there's a little bit more appeal for people to try to get the street cred of being DB Cooper.
It just, I can see it. It just still blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you even got people like, what was it, Zodiac Killer? Someone's like, "Oh, that was me," and it's like, you're.
Yep.
So it's like people do it, yes, for this, but they still do.
They still do it even for the most heinous acts, which
Yeah,
is crazy to me.
just blows my
Yeah.
mind. So the FBI's investigation that was codenamed Norjack considered over 1,000 suspects in the DB Cooper case by 1976, with hundreds of interviews conducted with eyewitnesses, passengers, and potential matches. And now is when we're going to talk about the couple suspects that
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are more, which you have a couple
Yeah.
that we'll talk
Yeah, there's a
about.
lot of suspects in this case. And part of it,
Yeah.
like you said, is there's so many people who claim that their uncle or their dad or their so and so was DB Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's definitely some that are a little bit more credible,
Yeah.
you know, for different reasons. And we'll
Mm-hmm.
get into a lot of those. So,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Once we get everything done, we're going to have a really good discussion after this.
mm-hmm.
All right. So the first one is Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. So he is a 27-year or was a 27-year-old former military helicopter pilot and Vietnam War veteran. McCoy was a Mormon married with children and student at Brigham Young University in 1972. He had extensive parachuting experience, including skydiving skills. On April 7th, 1972, less than 5 months after Cooper's hijacking, McCoy hijacked a United Airlines Boeing 727, basically doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He demanded $500,000 for parachutes and jumped from the plane's aft stairs over Provo, Utah. McCoy was arrested after the FBI traced him through fingerprints and handwriting analysis. He escaped from prison in 1974, but was killed in a shootout with police in Virginia later that year. In 2022, retired pilot, skydiver, and YouTuber Dan Grider found a modified military surplus parachute and a skydiving logbook in a shed on the McCoy family property in Cove City, North Carolina, owned by the late Karen McCoy, who was Richard's wife.
Mm-hmm.
The parachute was uniquely modified, described by him as, quote, literally one in a billion, end quote, and allegedly altered by Earl Cossey, who was a skydiver who worked with the FBI to supply parachutes for the Cooper hijacking. The logbook reported documents McCoy practiced jumping and that aligned with the timelines of both the Cooper hijacking and McCoy's own hijacking in Utah. So this YouTuber investigated the Cooper case for over 20 years and believes this parachute is the one used by Cooper, directly linking McCoy to this crime. Now, Richard's children, Shantae and Richard McCoy III, he goes by Rick, claims their father was D.B. Cooper. They kept silent until their mother's death in 2020, believing that she may have been complicit in both hijackings. After her passing, they shared the parachute and logbook with this YouTuber and the FBI. Shantae describes as the family historian that they felt guilty for letting FBI agents into their home during McCoy's 1972 arrest from the Utah hijacking. And the siblings now are seeking closure and seeking to apologize for their father's actions. In September 2023, the YouTuber and Rick met with FBI agents in Richmond, Virginia to hand over the parachute and logbook. The FBI conducted a 4-hour search of the McCoy property involving over a dozen agents and took the items into evidence. The FBI has not publicly confirmed reopening the case, but the search and evidence collection suggests renewed interest. The YouTuber claims the FBI agent led investigators in the 70s, admitted that the Bureau dropped the ball on McCoy, and believes the case may now be solved. The FBI is supposedly they're considering exhuming McCoy's body for DNA testing to compare with the partial DNA sample that they have from DB Cooper's tie.
Mm-hmm.
But there have not been any like formal plans that have ever been put out there.
It's too bad I saw that the FBI lost the cigarette butts because that probably would have had better DNA
Well,
on
yeah,
there.
because you're puffing on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like a tie, I mean, other people could have touched the tie, or there could have been other DNA that wasn't even his on there.
Right.
So it would have been nice if they had the cigarette butts still, because that would have clearly had saliva and stuff on there.
Right. Yeah.
But I actually watched an interview with one of the FBI agents who, when he was arrested, when McCoy was arrested for the second hijacking, he was like in prison, and one of the FBI agents was going to interview him about the DB Cooper case. And he said that McCoy never actually denied it. He just said he didn't want to talk about that. And he would get like flustered a little bit sometimes when the FBI agent would like bring up certain evidence or like show pictures of DB Cooper. He would get kind of like flustered. And then the only thing that he did deny was he said that he was at home during that. He wasn't there, but they clearly found evidence that like the next day after DB Cooper, he was in Las Vegas.
And I didn't know that part.
Yeah, so they had like phone records that he had called his wife from Vegas. They had receipts for certain things, and so they knew that he was lying when he said he was at home. Which, you know, if he didn't do that one, why would he make up a lie about that? So they know he was in Vegas, and the FBI thought that that he was possibly there to try and launder the money, because a lot of criminals, you know, if they have money, they'll go to a casino, they'll gamble, they'll, you know, take whatever they get out of it, and that's clean money. Even one of the FBI agents who interviewed him said that he knew he wasn't being truthful, and he thought for sure when he left the prison that he was DB Cooper. So that adds even more kind of credibility to that, in addition to the fact that the MO was exactly the same. I mean, number of parachutes, you know, the only difference was he didn't have a bomb. He had like a hand grenade, I guess, but still same idea. And all those other things. So I think I think he's an interesting one, and we'll get into some of the other ones too. And then think who we think is the most likely. But he certainly is a good suspect in this case.
Top contender.
Yeah, he's a top contender for DB for sure.
The next one that I have on my list is Robert Racksaw. So Robert is a Vietnam War veteran, former U.S. Army paratrooper, explosives expert, and pilot. He had 22 aliases and a history of legal trouble, including faking his own death in 1978 by crashing a rented plane. He did pass away in 2019. His military training and familiarity with Boeing aircrafts made him a compelling suspect. In 2018, there was a documentary that came out, and a 40-person team of former FBI agents claimed that Rackstraw was Cooper, citing coded letters allegedly sent by Cooper to newspapers post hijacking. A fifth, which these letters, I couldn't find anything about the letters other than that there was supposedly letters.
Yeah. But there wasn't anything that was published or any of that you could find. No. And you'd think with so much lore around this case, you'd think that you would have records of that where you could go read the letters or see them.
Right. Unless they're like keeping it so close to their chest, being like only DB Cooper will know like what's in these letters.
Which is possible, but also like a lot of the suspects are dead now. Or I mean, I don't know. It's not like it's a cold case murder from 5 years ago and they are pretty sure the person's still alive. And I mean, at this point, I don't know.
Highly unlikely, because if this person was in their 40s and the 70s, that means that they were born in the 30s.
Yeah.
So odds are they're not around anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I don't know.
So a fifth letter obtained via a Freedom of Information Act request containing the code 717171684 which former Army security agent member Rick Sherwood decoded as I'm Lieutenant Robert W. Rackshaw, and the sixth letter was sent March in 1972 and was signed a rich man and claimed Cooper was alive in the Bahamas.
Which would make sense that he would try and get out of the U.S. and go live it up somewhere with his 200,000 or however much he'd had left.
I mean, why not live it up while you have it? Yeah. Right? But again, I don't have physical, like these are just a couple random journalists saying that there are these letters, but
but it's hard to know without actually seeing them or having them verified or any of that.
Yeah, it's not like Zodiac Killer where they were in the newspaper.
Yeah, like thousands and thousands of people saw them, and and you can go look at them now if you just Google it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Or even like the Circleville letters and stuff like that. Like,
people actually have the letters and post them, and
Yep. So the FBI investigated Rackshaw in the late 70s, interviewing him after his 1978 arrest for fraud and aircraft theft. Rackstraw neither confirmed nor denied being Cooper, making cryptic comments like telling a reporter to verify Colbert's facts. Which I think that is who decoded his
alleged letters.
In 2018, their team showed the 1970s photos of Rackstraw to the flight attendant Tina Mucklow, who reportedly said that there was no similarities to Cooper's appearance.
Okay. And she was the one that from the start was his kind of go-between and liaison for his hijacking. Yeah. So, I mean, she obviously probably had his image like pretty imprinted in her brain.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So
if this random dude walks on your plane and is like, hey, I have a bomb. Yeah. Like, you're not going to forget that. No. Face.
And I mean, for her, obviously, like she was unharmed and fine, but it was a life or death situation for her if she didn't do things the right way and everything. So you'd think that she would know pretty instantly, given a picture of somebody, whether it was the guy or not.
And I mean, even after so much time, like for her to say like there are no similarities.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of people that are like it could have been, or like it looks kind of
Looks
like the guy, or
familiar.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But to like definitively say no, that's not
No.
him.
Yeah.
That seems like pretty decent evidence.
Yeah. Apparently, his attorney also agreed with that. He dismissed all the allegations, saying, quote, saying that this was, quote, the stupidest thing I ever heard.
I like that. I like that response.
um,
I've heard of some things that are even more stupid, I think, but it doesn't sound like he's a prime suspect in this one.
I mean, it doesn't look too good.
No, no.
I mean, they also didn't find any fingerprints or DNA that linked him to this at
Hmm.
all. So, yeah, I don't I
I mean,
don't
there
know.
are things in his favor. Certainly, the military history, the like explosives expert thing.
Yeah.
There are definitely things that would lead you to believe, like, okay, we're onto something here. But then
Mhm.
once you get narrower and narrower down into things, it's like, I don't know. I don't really see it.
Yeah. All right. The next one here that I have is Lynn Doyle Cooper, who was a Korean War veteran and leather worker. LD Cooper died in 1999. He was proposed as a suspect in 2011 by his niece, Marla Cooper, who recalled his suspicious behavior in 1971. Marla was 8 years old at that time and remembered her uncle and another uncle planning something mischievous at her grandmother's house in Oregon, which was 150 miles from Portland, and this involved expensive walkie talkies. The day after the hijacking, LD returned home with a bloody shirt claiming that it was from a car accident, but Marla believed that this implicated him in the hijacking. The FBI investigated LD Cooper in 2011 after Marla's claims. They interviewed her extensively and focusing on her memories. Um, Obviously, we couldn't interview LD Cooper because he had died 10
Yeah,
years or 12 years before then. I can't do math right now either, apparently. Um, the flight attendants, Schaffner and Mucklow, were shown photos of LD Cooper, and neither of them identified him as the hijacker. So basically, not really anything with that
yeah,
either.
and also, I mean, obviously, like the name is similar, same last name and
Yeah.
everything, but like, I wouldn't think this guy would use his real last name as like his alias to do
Yeah.
this. That just seems. It seems like I get why people are looking for suspects who are like, oh, this guy's name was Cooper. It's like, to me, those are people I wouldn't look at because
Right. It's too obvious.
yeah, if you're gonna pull something off like this, you're not gonna use your own last name.
Or is that smart? Because then no one's going to look at you. Because little reverse
Yeah,
psychology there.
maybe. I don't know if people would risk that though. In the FBI, like I don't think they. I don't know. I don't think
Just,
reverse psychology works that well on like a whole team of FBI agents.
well,
Like we got you. We confused you. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I'm not going to test out that theory though.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. We'll see if when you commit any crimes, if you use your real last name. I
no,
think I would go for an alias on that one. I don't think I would actually use my last name for it.
don't commit crimes, people.
Yes, don't test that theory out either way.
All joking. um, I have one more, and it is Sheridan Peterson. uh, which they were a former Boeing employee who worked on the Boeing 747 flight manual. Peterson was an accomplished skydiver and smoke jumper in Montana. He died in 2021, and his knowledge of the 727's aft stairs and parachuting expertise made him a suspect. Peterson was flagged within a week of the hijackings, but was not interviewed by the FBI until decades later. His familiarity with the aircraft really was what drove the speculation here. The FBI identified Peterson early but did not pursue him aggressively due to other leads that were going on at the time. When he was interviewed decades later, Peterson denied involvement but provided vague responses, which those vague responses kept him in consideration. Flight attendants and passenger Mitchell were not documented as identifying Peterson in photos, though his physical description partially matched Cooper's. No definitive witness confirmation emerged. No DNA or fingerprints linked him to anything that they had either. So they weren't able to continue to pursue him any further.
So that one again is like there's some things, but it doesn't seem like a super strong case, even though
No.
that he is considered to be one of the top suspects, at least
Right.
for online and sleuths and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But it doesn't seem as good as some of the evidence for other people.
No, not really. Um, who else do you got over there?
So I have one, Dwayne Weber, who looked very similar to DB Cooper. If you see a picture side by side, they are very similar looking. He was a World War II Army veteran and a career criminal, had a history of incarceration and burglary, basically from the end of World War II, like when he got out, until 1968. So kind of that whole time he was, doing nefarious things. He spent time in prison under the name John Collins too. So he had already used aliases to commit crimes.
Weren't new to him.
Yeah, exactly. So the where this first kind of came about was on his deathbed. He confessed to his wife about 3 days before he died that he was DB Cooper, and he was saying how important it was that like she knew that and everything. So he wasn't just like out of it, I mean, he was like, it was an important message for him to get to her. And his wife at that time didn't really even know much about DB Cooper. And so then like his wife and family started looking into it, and things started to make a little bit more sense once all of that, like once they started going down the rabbit hole. So he also, like around the time of the DB Cooper thing, when he came home, he had a knee injury. He had told people that it happened in a skydiving accident, which would make sense. He also, for like his whole time as an adult, he drank bourbon and he chain smoked cigarettes, which is very similar to DB Cooper.
Did he like 7-Up too?
I do not know if he liked mixing with 7-Up, but he definitely enjoys bourbon. He also spent a lot of time at casinos gambling, and apparently he also did not make a lot of money. So one of the years, like the year of the DB Cooper incident, he claimed $1,000 for his income for taxes. But right after the DB Cooper event, he bought 2 new cars with cash, which seems a little where to get that money. So, especially if you only made $1,000 that year. So there are certainly things like that. Apparently, sometimes when he was sleeping, he would talk in his sleep about like hijacking, which his like family would say, and like they would just think like he's just having a weird dream or something. But he would like bring it up in his sleep. So this one I think is an interesting one. The FBI acknowledged that he fit the physical description and appearance and had the criminal background to be associated with the case. Right. The other weird thing was he took his wife on a vacation to the place, basically like right at the place where that kid found the $5,800 ransom money. And he would make comments to his wife about like, this is where Cooper came out. And like his wife didn't know anything about who DB Cooper was. So she's like, what are you talking about? And then he, on this vacation one night, or I guess it was during the day, his wife stayed in the hotel room. He left and then came back later covered in mud and dirt and everything on his clothes. He took a shower, cleaned up. Then when they left, his wife noticed like a paper bag in the back seat that wasn't there before that had something big in there. And his wife asked what it was, and he just like brushed it off and told her not to worry about it, said it was just junk he was going to throw away. But that, obviously lends speculation to the fact that he was going out there to try and find more of the money that maybe either was stashed there or had floated away, and he was going back to look for it.
Yeah.
So I think he's an interesting one. However, the FBI and forensic experts have ruled him out based on DNA conducted, did not quite match his DNA. The fingerprints also did not match. But I also wonder with this case, like how good of a DNA profile they
Right.
actually had, because it seems like nobody's matching the DNA of all these main suspects. And so I do wonder how good, because they even said it was a partial DNA profile.
Right. What
And
does a partial DNA profile mean?
yeah, and like how, I don't know enough about
Yeah.
DNA testing or what they mean by that. Like, is it enough to definitively say one way or the other? And again, a lot of the DNA was from the tie, which isn't direct like bodily fluid or anything like that. Like it would have been from the
No.
cigarettes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the tie could have like come, it could have had DNA from anybody. I mean, who knows if he just bought the tie the day
Yeah.
before and it had the salesman's DNA on there.
Right.
So
Maybe he didn't tie his own tie.
that's the thing. Yeah. So like I don't know if that necessarily disqualifies a lot of these people, that their DNA doesn't match
Mm-hmm.
perfectly. That's Dwayne Weber, and he certainly fits for a lot of the things, and a lot of things that don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to obviously him confessing to it,
Right.
and having a lot of like similar appearance and all that stuff as well. But so I don't know. He's a compelling one to me, but it is hard because the FBI has like officially ruled him out as a
Mm-hmm.
suspect. So
Yeah. I don't know. It's so hard with like they don't have like the cigarette DNA,
I
you
know.
know?
If they just had that, because then they would have saliva, which would have the actual full DNA on there,
Mm-hmm.
and it would have been. And I think, I mean, DNA testing was not like a thing in 1971,
No.
and so like it was so hard. I mean, you can't really be critical of the FBI. I mean, obviously they lost evidence, which isn't great, but also they didn't know that like, oh, in the future we'll be able to test this for DNA, and so we should
Right.
make sure to preserve the cigarette butts from it. I'm
Yeah.
sure they were thinking like the fingerprints are a lot more important, and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So yeah, I think it would be nice to have the like a complete DNA profile that
Yeah.
we know was his, and not just that was found on the tie.
Right. But here we are in 2025 saying that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It's hard from 54 years ago
Right.
to know. So,
Yeah.
so that's the main one that I had. All the other ones that I've heard, there's a few other ones that family claims that they were, and there were certain things that made sense, like they were big into skydiving, they were daredevils, they had confessed, they all kinds of other
Mm-hmm.
things. They were in the area at the time, but none of them are as compelling, I think, as some of the ones that we've touched on here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Um, yeah, the only thing I really have is kind of like some theories
mhm,
like about DB Cooper. The first one being that he died in the jump.
mhm,
So this is like the FBI's like big theory is that DB Cooper died after his parachute jump because of the hazardous conditions, and it didn't seem like he was really prepared to, jump. Apparently, like there was the storm going
yep,
on while he jumped, so the temperature was 15 degrees Fahrenheit, the winds of 200 miles an hour at high altitudes, and heavy rain over the rugged forest of, Southwest Washington.
mhm.
And he also had a non-steerable military parachute. He didn't have any like helmets or boots, and he was also carrying all this money that added more weight and could potentially drag him or snag on something.
Yep, yep. And he didn't have like, I mean, he was wearing a suit, which at 15 degrees with wind and
Yeah.
everything, I mean, you could. So a lot of people thought even if he did survive like the landing, that he could have gotten
Mhm.
hypothermia and died,
Yeah.
just from it's raining, it's incredibly cold. So that's because it does make sense when people talk about he probably had some military background,
Yeah.
just to have the knowledge of parachuting
Mhm.
and how planes worked and heights and just everything that he and even the Air Force Base and stuff. But you would have thought that if he really planned it out well, he would have had like another bag or suitcase or something that had like a
Right.
jumpsuit in there or a helmet or something like that, that he would have
Mhm.
changed into,
Yep.
because yeah, and that's the biggest thing, that the people who think that he died either on impact or shortly after,
Yeah.
just cite the conditions too, that he was not
Mhm.
prepared at all to deal with those conditions.
Right. And another thing to also mention here, because like we know there's never been a body or anything
Mm-hmm.
found here. Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980. So this also like altered this landscape that he supposedly could have landed around.
Mm.
So that could potentially be lost too.
And I mean, it was very remote and very rugged. It wasn't like an area that routinely has, because a lot of America, like rural America and woods and stuff, there's a lot of hunters that are out
Mm-hmm.
and doing things. And so they find bodies and they find stuff. That apparently was like a very, very remote area and treacherous terrain
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And so it's not inconceivable that a body could not be found before it decays or,
Mm-hmm.
so that, because people say there's no body, and it's like, yeah, but where he jumped over,
Mm-hmm.
it's possible that you'd never find a body in there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The next one we've already talked about quite a bit is that Cooper was a military trained person, basically. Um, and that he, survived and escaped because he had all of this training. He was very familiar with Boeing 727's aft stairs, demanded for specific parachutes, saying like two main, two reserve, and his knowledge of the aviation, specifying the 10,000 feet in altitude and the flaps at 15 degrees. So he had some sort of experience
Sure.
here.
I mean, just any like a random bank robber or something is not going to have any of that experience. And this is
Hmm.
before the internet too, so it wasn't like you could just Google all of these
Right.
different things.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
almost had to learn firsthand or through talking to somebody who has direct knowledge of this how all this stuff works. And so it
Hmm.
seems like he would have to have been trained in the military somehow to know that.
Yeah.
Or I guess as a pilot too. That's the other option. Like if you are a
Right.
pilot,
Yep.
even if it was civilian, you
Hmm.
could know that as well. So
Yeah, definitely. My last one here is a little out there.
go for it.
Cooper was connected to the Zodiac killer.
Oh wow, I haven't heard this one.
Oh,
You must have been
look
going
at
deep
that.
down the DB Cooper rabbit hole.
A little bit. I I mostly saw this on Reddit, but
Hmm.
I saw it and I was like, what is going on? And I
Yeah,
just kept clicking on things.
let's hear it.
And there was also a book that came out in 2021 that was titled Cooper Solved, and it proposed that basically someone that was suspected of being the Zodiac killer, which was Jack Terrence, which that name's not familiar to me, so
No.
maybe I need to go revisit Zodiac Killer. Um, Basically, he suspected that person as being Cooper because they had similarities in their methodical planning and their taunting letters, and both had cryptic communications. The Zodiac Killer had their ciphers, and then, Cooper had these letters, and I'm using air quotes
Yeah.
because I
Where are the letters? I want to see the letters.
I need proof that these letters exist, not
Yeah.
just random, you know, articles that say, "Oh, they're letters."
Hmm.
I need something more than that.
Yeah.
Um, and supposedly some of them are still unsolved, like Zodiac ciphers. The Zodiac operated in Northern California in the late 60s, which wasn't far from the Pacific Northwest where Cooper hijacked the plane. And the description that one of the passengers gave of Cooper loosely aligned with some of Zodiac's, suspected profiles. And some also argue that the sketches look similar,
Hmm.
which, sure, it's like a white guy with glasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that's pretty much it.
Well, and the sketches too, it's hard. Like I was watching an interview with one of the retired FBI agents, and he said that he was dying laughing because when the sketch came out, it looked exactly like him.
Yeah.
And he even like sent the picture like with the sketch to his mom, and she was like, "Oh, who drew that nice picture of you?" And so I mean, and he was one of the FBI agents investigating it, and like he
Yeah.
obviously wasn't DB Cooper, so
It's like it's two guys with
Yeah,
glasses.
I mean, two Caucasian dudes with glasses, like it's, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not. And I mean, the other thing that's weird is like, I mean, Zodiac obviously was like a heinous murderer. And like everybody who came in contact with DB Cooper said he was courteous. He wasn't mean. He obviously didn't try and hurt anybody. So, I mean, he seemed like he was in it for the money, and he wasn't in it to hurt anybody,
Right. Versus
because
Zodiac
was the opposite.
opposite.
Yeah. So that doesn't make sense to me either.
No.
Even the flight attendants and everybody were like, yeah, he was actually like, I mean, even though it was stressful, he was actually really nice to me. And so you wouldn't think like one of the most notorious serial killers of all time would be that kind to everybody on the plane.
You wouldn't think so, no.
No.
Like I said, it was so out there that I had to say it.
Yeah.
So when I saw it come up, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. How are they even remotely linked?
Yeah,
I don't think they are, but a lot of people don't think they are.
They both wrote letters apparently, which a lot of people in the 70s wrote letters. And they both look like regular people in sketches. So
yeah, so they're linked.
Yeah. I have an interesting thing that I found too, down the rabbit hole, and this comes with like the name of DB Cooper. When he bought the ticket, he said Dan Cooper, and then like he was going by DB Cooper. But there actually was a French or Franco-Belgian comic series called Dan Cooper, also known as Les Adventures de Dan Cooper. Probably not with that accent. They probably do it better, but that's my Franco-Belgian accent. It actually was about a Canadian military test pilot and astronaut who frequently engaged in daring aerial adventures, including skydiving from aircraft. And it was a very similar, I mean, there weren't any hijackings or anything, but it was a very similar sort of character. And so the FBI, once they got word of this, they figured that the hijacker was possibly inspired by the comic, but the comic was never translated into English at that time. So then they were wondering if Dan Cooper actually had some sort of connection to it, possibly through like a military tour of duty to Europe, or possibly had like French Canadian heritage, and could speak French in order to read it, because they figure that that's where the name Dan Cooper, DB Cooper came from, was from this comic book that was about this kind of daring secret agent, Canadian military test pilot and astronaut. So obviously, if that's true, because it is kind of a random name just to pull out of nowhere, this guy obviously was inspired by some foreign comic books maybe that had very similar things going on with them.
That's a pretty cool connection.
Yeah, it is. And kind of obscure. It's kind of random, but it would make sense, and enough so that the FBI was really using that as a possible connection. So
interesting. I didn't see that anywhere. That's cool.
Yeah.
The only thing that I have left here is that the FBI officially closed this in 2016. So it is no longer active. So who knows?
Yeah, who knows if we'll ever get the lowdown on who it is. And the longer it goes, it seems like the harder it's going to be, because a lot of these DB Cooper characters are now passed away. And a lot of it's kind of funny, a lot of the families of these people are like trying to champion for their family member being DB Cooper, which again doesn't normally happen with crimes. Usually it's like the dark family secret that you hope no one finds out. And a lot of the families are now coming forward, whether they had confessions or they had similarities, or they had things that point to their family member being DB Cooper. So I think it's something that will continue even if the FBI has officially closed it. I think it'll continue with researchers and internet sleuths and writers to get to the bottom of it, because it's one of the few big things in American history, and big like crimes like this or heists, that the person got away with it. He may have died in the attempt, but pulled off this daring thing and got away with it. So I think it's always going to be interesting in the minds of Americans and law enforcement too. I mean, there's still FBI agents who, even though it's not an official investigation, are still interested personally in it. So
I think it's a really cool case.
And I think that just the fact that nobody was hurt in it. Again, we don't condone any sort of terroristic or hijacking or anything. But I just think because nobody was hurt in this, it's it's led people to be more curious and intrigued of who DB Cooper was without painting him as some monster or something that, you know, hurt a bunch of people or any of that. So
yeah, that is all I got for DB Cooper.
So if you had to put your money on it, who would you say is the most likely person, or who would you say out of the people we talked about, or do you think it's nobody, it's or none of those people, it's somebody completely different?
I don't know. I was so convinced about McCoy until you mentioned, what was it, Walter? Yeah, and now I don't know. Walter seems so convinced.
Or Weber.
Or Weber.
Dwayne Weber.
Yeah, not Walter. Weber seems so convincing, though.
I know.
Like, why would that be a deathbed confession? And why have you, like, brought your wife to, oh, this is where DB Cooper was.
And then you come back dirty after you left her, and then you have a bag of something, and then how do you have almost no income, but you bought 2 brand new cars with cash right after the event? You have a knee injury that you claim happened in skydiving. You drink bourbon and chain smoke cigarettes. You look like DB Cooper almost exactly. Yeah, so that one I think those 2 to me are the most likely, at least of the people we know. It could be somebody completely different who got away with it. That, you know, has never been found, but it seems like those 2 are the most interesting. And the fact that Richard McCoy pulled off the exact same thing, at least until he got caught, you know, until they traced him, but did the exact same thing with the same MO
not long later,
just months later. And even the FBI at the time, they thought for sure that he was DB Cooper. And their theory was that he lost the money the first time in the jump, and so he did it again, and he did the same exact MO but with more money this time. I don't know. And he never denied it, except that he just said that he was at home, which they know was a lie because they have him traced to Vegas.
I didn't see that part, so I didn't know about that part.
Yeah, and they have like all the physical evidence of him being in Vegas like right after it, which would make sense that he would go down there, launder the money in the casinos, and then go back home. So assuming that he had the money. But so, yeah, I don't know. I think those 2 are the most interesting to me, just because A, they look like DB Cooper. B, they both had military backgrounds, and they both like had so many weird things around it or after that would make sense with them possibly doing it. So,
yeah, I also saw that, you know, some people were saying for McCoy, if he wasn't DB Cooper, he probably learned from DB Cooper on how to pull this off.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody originally was like, oh, it was either they thought he was DB Cooper doing it again, or they thought it was a copycat crime. But this is such a complex crime to pull off that you can't just read about in the newspaper and be like, oh, I'll go do that then. I mean, there's so much you have to know about parachuting, about like just how to pull all of this off, that it doesn't, it seems like you would have to either be DB Cooper, or, like you said, know DB Cooper and have learned from him. So
I don't know. I don't know if the world's ever going to know who DB Cooper was.
Yeah, it's just too bad that we don't have like a full good genetic profile.
I know.
Because if they did, then it would be easier to. And I wonder if they've done any of this with some of the suspects of like, was it McCoy that they were talking about possibly exhuming his body? I wonder if they could just test his family first for DNA,
the genealogy or whatever it is.
Because I mean, with that, you would get a pretty clear picture if it's at least close.
I guess it probably depends on their partial. Well, yeah, you're not going to get fingerprint. I'm dumb. Hasn't been that recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they've found a whole bunch of like you know, murderers and stuff that were never found, and all these cold cases are getting solved because, you know, their, you know, grandchildren are going in the database for whatever reason. Some people just go in.
I mean, the most famous recent one was Golden State Killer. I mean, he had gotten away with it and they had I think he had stopped in 86 or something, that they know of.
Yeah.
And then it was like it was a relative who had done one of the
Mm-hmm.
ancestry things,
Yeah.
and they ran it through that, and then sure enough, they caught the guy. Um, so I don't know. That's where I wonder if they, and that goes back to how good the partial DNA is, and
Yeah.
if they can use that the same way as if they can use well preserved full DNA samples.
Right.
But you'd think they could run it through some of the databases too, and at least see
Mm-hmm.
who it ties to.
I know it also depends on what state they're in, because some states can't do that.
Okay.
Because I don't remember which state we were talking about. This was probably over a year ago now that I
Mm-hmm.
was doing research on this specific case. I don't even remember which case it was, but I remember wondering why they couldn't do this.
Yeah.
And we had someone in the comments actually tell us,
Oh,
like,
cool.
hey, we're from here, and legally, like, you can't do that here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So some states don't allow that in the
Yeah.
US.
Okay. So it's not like they can just run it through everybody,
Mm-hmm.
with impunity and
Yeah.
figure it out.
Some
So
can, some can't.
yeah,
So it all depends on where you live, I guess.
interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's I hope we find out who it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is kind of, it's just a fun and interesting case because we have no idea who it is, and
I
there's
know.
constantly like books being written about it, new
Yep.
documentaries, new information that people think they now know who DB Cooper was, and then that'll kind of get shot down or just go to the lore and
I know.
be another possible suspect. So it is kind of fun that it's still an evolving case a little bit,
Yep.
but it would be kind of fun to know who DB Cooper actually was, and to know if he did survive, and had the money and all that,
Yeah.
or if he passed away. So
Yeah. So that's DB Cooper is a who knows who he is, but we're probably going to be talking about him for a long time.
yeah, I mean, it's already been 54 years almost.
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving this year will be 54 years, and we're still excited about talking about DB Cooper. So
I know this is just like such a change. Like we're laughing. We're not trying not to cry over
yeah,
here.
this
So
this is a little lighter crime than some of the ones we've covered recently. So
I'll take it.
yeah,
Well, next week we might be crying for a different reason.
yeah,
So yeah, that's going to be a big surprise for you guys. Make sure you watch it because we're going to be in pain.
yes,
A lot of pain.
it's going to be bad. This
Yeah.
is this is we're not going to be laughing on that one, I don't think.
I'm probably going to be crying.
Yes.
I'm going to be crying.
And it's not because of anything that you're thinking in your head right now, but you'll be surprised, and it'll probably be funny. It'll be your chance to see us suffer a little bit. So
Yeah. And that is all I'm going to say about that. You
yeah.
guys got to tune in next week.
Yep.
Make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms that will be linked down in the description below. Make sure that you're following us so you do get notified when that episode drops. And we will see you guys next time.
And if you know who DB Cooper is, write it in the comments. If you're
Yeah.
DB Cooper, send us a message. We'd love to interview you.
Say hi.
Yeah, if you have any comments or anything, we'd love to hear it. Send us an email or comments. So
Absolutely. All right. Until next time.
bye.
Bye.